If humans are naturally drawn to learning, why doesn't everyone enjoy school? If everyone has unique gifts and talents, why do some people feel dumb, depressed, and insignificant? If you want something different, you need to do something different. Welcome to the Element is Everything podcast, where we discuss real world experiences, research, and strategies around finding your element, what it is, how to do it, and how to support others in developing it. Please welcome your host with over 30 years' experience in public education and independent learning, Terry Novacek.
Imagine having the interest, talent, and attitude to be your best you. While all that sounds great, there are times when even though your interests and talents do come together, you might feel something is still missing. And then you realize, I am just not enjoying this. Do you ever find it challenging to truly put your heart into the work you do? Well, rather than questioning your interests and talents, think about your environment and or maybe the people that you're engaging with. Today we talk with Earl Otte, lead manager for Community Montessori, who developed the school's middle school program from the ground up. While initially one might think this is a man with decades of experience as a teacher, you'll learn it was actually a more diverse path that brought him to this place where he experiences joy on a daily basis. Hi, Earl. Thank you for taking the time to share your story with us. Where should we begin?
I think possibly if we spoke about living in England and deciding to leave teaching, because that was probably that was a low point. That was sad. I didn't do it happily, and I did it because just sort of sheer frustration with the system, with the people I worked with the children's behaviors, just all those things. I just felt that I just had to do something different. And there was a part of me too that wanted to know, like, how did I truly know that teaching was my element if I didn't try something else? So I wanted to be, it was sort of an idea that I felt I could always come back to teaching. I didn't know it would take me that long or be that hard, but it was nice to go, okay, well then let's see what it's like doing something else apart from teaching.
Do you remember what drew you to teaching originally?
Terry, was the funniest thing. I was a senior in South Africa, and we had a visit from the state education department back in the day, and they just had a conversation with a group of seniors saying, there's a teaching shortage. Just kind of putting it out there. If any of you have ever thought about teaching, and I hadn't really thought about it so much, and I kind of thought, well, it's somewhat interesting. I didn't really know what else I wanted to do with my life, and so I thought, well, it's kind of interesting. I'll think about it. And then my dad told me that his father back in Germany had been a teacher, and they were kind of proud, like, wow, like our son's going to be a teacher. And so they were proud of that too. And then I just sort of got into it. And then once I started the program, I was like, oh yeah, this is me. But the initial entry wasn't sort of anything, super passion. It was more just I don't know what else I'm going to do. Let me investigate and kind of see where it goes from there.
So are you saying that your teacher training went really well?
Yes.
And that's what made you feel like
my teacher, like I didn't, like, almost once I started, I was, yeah. And I think the more I told people, and then people gave me that, oh, Earl, like, we could see you as a teacher. Like, oh yeah, totally. And that was sort of like an affirming thing, right? Being surrounded by people who said, oh yeah, we can see you doing that. And so you feed off that positive energy for sure.
So you're in your element and you're in England and something was wrong. What was wrong?
For sure. So I was doing substitute teaching, and it paid really well. I mean, it paid really, really well. So that was wonderful. But it was just, it just got to the job of feeling like you were babysitting children. Like, you just got there, give them this worksheet. I worked in some of the real tough schools, emotional, behavioral difficulty schools. I tended not to moan. So at the end of the day, the principal would always say to me, are you available tomorrow? Can you come back tomorrow? Well, sure, I can come back tomorrow. And I just sort of witnessed this disillusioned kiddos, disillusioned adults, tons of admin. They had like their sort of state officials coming in and doing all these inspections and demanding this and demanding that and paperwork. And the overwhelming vibe was a negative vibe. And I just got to the point where I was thinking, this is crazy. This isn't teaching children. This is babysitting children. This is just getting through the day, making sure that one kid doesn't fight with another kid. This is just making sure that, you get out of there not alive, because that's a bit dramatic, but it really just, there was no, I'd loved it back in South Africa where I first taught high school, but this was just so different and so disillusioning. And I think that kind of coincided with that idea of, well, maybe I should try something else just to be sure that teaching is what I want to do with the rest of my life.
And so where did you go from there?
So I then started looking around for another job, and there's some very smart people in the business world who know there's a lot of disillusioned teachers. And when you start kind of looking for it, they find you very, very, very quickly. And so, and they're very good. They advertised it as a seminar to work in the recruitment industry. And I went in there blissfully ignorant, and really only on the day that I sat down did I understand that I was actually in a sales job. It was just, I kept thinking, oh no, I'm going to be, talking to people over the phone, and we're going to be discussing the best job for them and what meets their emotional needs and what meets the company's needs. And together we're going to make this, great match, and everything's going to, then suddenly I got there and it's right. You got to make, 100 phone calls a day. You've got to get these accountants. You've got to get 6 interviews lined up a day. You've got to get 3 offers a week. You've got to get 2 closed every week. There were all these metrics on the board, and, your calls were being counted, and, the office was just full of, the people rang a bell when one of their candidates matched and they made a job offer and things like that. And it was just sort of, I can remember pinching myself after about 3 or 4 months going, I'm in sales. Like, it's called recruitment, but I'm in sales. And then circumstances just sort of took over, and I was pretty good at it, which helped. And so, was making some decent money. Then we won the green card, or Sam won the green card. And so we were able to come to America. And at that point I said, this is the perfect chance. I don't want to be in sales anymore. I'm super excited. And I came to California, found out how to become a teacher. So I did my CBEST straight away. And then I started trying to find out like how I would clear my, get an American credential from my South African and UK paperwork. And it just seemed an insurmountable mountain. It just seemed so difficult, and so many hoops and so many things to do. And I needed a job. So I got another job in sales, and literally ended up for 7 years in recruiting at a company down in Del Mar. And I can't complain, because I did well, and we were able to buy a house, and we started our family. So there was nothing wrong with that. But I was never truly happy. It really felt like waking up every morning, hating Sunday nights. Sunday nights were the worst. I would just be like, oh, it's all starting again. And that literally being in a cube, and just how many phone calls have you made? How many offers do you have? And it was just draining me away. It was absolutely draining me away. So then I decided that, I was thinking of doing something different. And so I tried a different sales job. I left that one, and I went to work in outside sales, because I thought, oh, well, maybe not being in a cube. And I worked for a company called Aramark, and we went around selling coffee and tea and water to businesses and things like that. And I literally changed. And about 2 months later, the Great Recession struck. And so I was going to people and saying, hey, how about putting a Starbucks coffee espresso machine in the break room? The guys are, Earl, we just laid off 30 people today. Like, I can't get a Starbucks coffee machine. So the timing was awful. And so then I got laid off from that. And then that was low, because it's the first time I'd ever been laid off. And it was hard not to take it personally. Like, it was just like, wow, like, who am I? What am I going to become? How am I going to look after my family? Luckily, I got a super supportive wife. And she said to me, she was the one really who said, I think you should go back to teaching. And then I remembered my teaching in England. And I said, no way. Like, I don't want to go back to teaching like that. That's just not what I imagined teaching would be like. And then, of course, she turned me onto the Montessori thing, and we met Shannon Reingold, and that's when I decided I'm going to do this. And with her support, and I started working part-time at Fallbrook Montessori. I was the school handyman, and I worked as their upper elementary assistant. So in the mornings, I worked as the upper elementary assistant. In the afternoon, I was the school handyman, come janitor, come painter, whatever it could. And then I was also working with Shannon and Tahisa at that time in the afternoons at Montiel, doing the Montessori, like the front desk and the after school program from there. And just straight away, like the whole vibe was different. Like the people that I was working with were engaged. They were caring. They were like, I never felt like the guy on the front desk. Like, it was just like a part of the team. And you know, and the parents and the kiddos, it was just my brain was just going crazy with it all. It was so fun. And then we started talking about the push came from the families. What about a middle school? You know, we love the Montessori program. How can we have our kids stay for longer? And that's when I found the adolescent program, and the rest is history. It really, after that, I was just you know, and so now gone are the Sunday evening dreads. Gone are the like it's the why for me is just naturally fulfilled. Like, I don't, you know, some days are worse than others. Yes, there's stresses. Yes, there's tough times, all those kinds of things. But I'm grateful now for having done that whole sales piece part of my life, because I can always look back at that and I can go, no, like
Right.
the worst day teaching that doesn't even come close to the best day being in a cube and trying to sell you know, jobs to people and people to jobs. So
Right.
yeah, for sure.
You know, something I was thinking about listening is that, so you're saying that your South African teaching experience was good, but the one in England was bad. But, you know, as we humans do sometimes, it's the bad one that's sticking out
Yes.
in the forefront of your mind when you think about going back to teaching. Yet you're talking about in today, yes, you know, there, you've got to take the bad with the good, and the good just really outweighs the bad for you. And
For sure. And I think it's so many levels of goodness that I appreciate. I appreciate the kiddos that I work with, and I appreciate the staff that I work with. And you know, now and again, obviously, like in an organization, you do come across those people who you go, whoa, energy vampire, you know, be careful of that one, kind of thing. But that is the exception, like really, really the exception. And it's just so much easier it's so much easier to come to work. Like, I don't even, you know, think of it as work. My wife will often say, like, oh, like, you know, like, you're going back to the school on Saturday. Well, yeah, like, it's fine, you know, and my kids will come with me, and it's just a part of who I am. Like, it doesn't even cross my mind to think of it as work. It's just, this is what I do. This is what I enjoy doing, and that's the why. So it's a really good feeling. And you know, in Montessori, they often talk about the flow, you know, that feeling of, you know, when you don't know how much time has passed, you don't know what's going on around you. I literally feel like that virtually every day at school. And it's not because I'm feeling overworked or overwhelmed. It's just, oh my gosh, the day's come to an end. The children are leaving. Like, what happened? Did I do everything I wanted to do today? Like, you know, so whereas I can tell you those days in the cube, man, I would look at my watch and I go, really? It's only 11? Like, are you joking right now? So I know for me, that alone is, yeah, like, this year, it's already March. And this is the COVID year with all the craziness and all the wackiness and everything. And I'm going, where did it go? Like, how did it go? And so that for me is a sign of that kind of happiness and satisfaction when you're not marking time. When you are not aware of time, then it's kind of, yeah, you're in the right place.
you know, a common theme I have seen with all of these positions you've talked about is that idea of, you know, even when you're doing recruitment, you're matching needs, you know, you're matching things up. And I'm realizing, just because I know what you do at Community Montessori, that's the same thing you're doing with those kiddos, with the adolescents, you know, you're
Yes.
developing learning plans around them and helping them.
Absolutely. They're each one of them is unique. Just like your in England it was accountants, in America it was nurses that I was working with. But they're unique, and what might be a great job to one, it was not a great job to another person at all. And it is the same with the students. I think it's a great idea. We should do this video. Some of the students are horrified. They couldn't think of anything worse than being in a video and being in front of their peers and being on video. And so, no, we got to try something different with them as well. So yeah, it's a matchmaking game.
Definitely. All righty. Well, thank you. Anything else you have for a 10-minute tidbit for people that might be looking for their element in all the wrong places?
I think, and what I've told some of the folks who've come to us as learning assistants and have contemplated, maybe taking the next step, is you don't know until you take the next step. So many people want to know, like, what is that final endpoint going to be? And it's cliched, and cliches are there for a reason, I think. But I know now that people could have said I was crazy to go and get a job as a handyman and the upper elementary assistant, and I don't even remember what I was getting paid, but I'm pretty sure it was just above minimum wage. But I didn't know at that point that I would end up teaching middle school Montessori. I didn't know middle school Montessori actually existed at that point. And I am so grateful and glad that I did do that then, because if I hadn't taken that small step, and each journey begins with a small step, right? And it is just so absolutely true that you can't always end up with the final goal in mind. I mean, it's good to know if you do know, and you should be working towards it. But sometimes you've just got to start. Like, you've just got to say, you know what? Like, I'm doing this, and then I'll see where it takes me. I might end up with some person. I might end up with another person. I might end up with one career. I don't know. It just absolutely depends. So for me, that's something I'm trying to talk to my own children, not my school children, my own children, is, my son's, he's going to be a senior next year, and he's kind of unsure what he's going to do. And I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. Like, you'll take a step, and that step will lead you, and you will meet somebody who will introduce you to somebody else. Just be open. Just be open to all those different things, because you just never know. Like, I always look at Shannon so fondly, because I know she was someone who was so instrumental in starting the program in the beginning, and I'm like, wow, that is just fantastic. And that her children were at my wife's school, and so we were able to connect with her. Like, these connections that you make, like, you just have no idea how they're going to end up, and you just got to be open to them. So just so crucial.
Absolutely. It makes me think of what they say about Edison, and how many failures he had. And he said, well, now I know how many ways that it doesn't work. Same thing, each thing you try. Well, now I know what I don't want to do.
Yeah,
which
for
could
sure.
be a step closer to what you do want to do.
Yeah. And it's something I see so much with the students. Some of them are so reluctant to start because they don't know where they're going to finish. And it's just an interesting thing for them just to say, get started. Here's your blank piece of paper. Just draw a line and
Right.
let's see what happens. Yeah, it's good.
Well, thank you, Earl, very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Earl Otte is an example of how not only you, but others benefit when you operate in your element. Finding his element has helped his family, his students, his students' parents, his coworkers. It's a fantastic domino effect. Even after years in the practice, you can hear the joy in his voice when he talks about what he does. You aren't truly operating in your element if you're not experiencing joy. So think about what lifts your spirits. Ask yourself, why do I choose to spend my time the way that I do? In what ways might success pay off in dividends of health and happiness rather than money or grades? In what ways can I bring my purpose and passions to the work I do? Look at your lists from episode 1 activity where you spent some time thinking about your interests, your talents, and your desires. Now reflect on your current environment and the people with which you spend your time. Do they support the items on your list? or do they create roadblocks for you? Would it make more sense to adjust the lists or to adjust the environment and the people? And while we all know there's limits to how much we can change our current environment and the people that are part of our daily lives, there are ways we can change the way we view them, and there are ways we can find opportunities to experience new environments and new people. In what ways can your current environment and people, as well as the new ones, bring you joy? Next week, we speak with a family who used their talents and interests to make the best of a life circumstance when they learned their son was on the autism spectrum. Please join us for episode 3 of 4.